Hello, hello, hello. It's so good to have you here and be with us. Thank you for joining us. I want to start with just a small moment of gratitude for who you are and what you bring to this world. We were introduced by one of the people in the podcast, in the previous podcast, and I know that when she mentions someone, she knows they're good people, good quality people, and you are one of those people. And I want to thank you for wanting to make an impact in this world. I want to connect with a heart of yours that is so willing to give and so generous with the world and so loving. In reading your book, I can hear how much you care. And I'm honored to be here with you, and I'm grateful that you accepted the invitation. Thank you. Mm.
Okay, first of all, I just want to say I do a lot of podcasts and I've never been welcomed in the way that you just welcomed me.
Mm.
My eyes
Mm.
are filled with tears and I because ultimately, what do we all want? We want to be seen, right? And
Mhm.
I feel you just gave me that blessing.
Mm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing your gifts. The first thing that I definitely want to address with you is, of course, we talked a little bit before, and I was telling you how I already, the book launched yesterday, I think, or today, and I already told someone like, you have to buy this book. This book is amazing. I was privileged to read the book beforehand and get my hands um, filled with your love. Um, but the first question I want to ask you, what was it that sort of motivated you to write the book? I know it's about seven figures and all of that. What was that impulse that got you to write the book?
My business is Back From Bali, which is e-commerce. So I spend a lot of time behind my computer, just, running the business, dealing with manufacturers and everything in Indonesia, dealing with, some team. It's very, very small. And I was feeling very invisible in my life. I was feeling
Mm,
like, okay, great. I have a great business. I'm really proud of myself. I have a great business, but I felt like I had so much more to share, and I was just not being seen at all for what I had to give and to share. And the way it all changes is really interesting. Is that I was in a coffee shop with a friend. This is probably 4 years ago, and I think I started writing the book around about 3.5 years ago. I was in a coffee shop with her, and she was telling me how these conference people. It's a small thing. It was like a women's organization, nothing huge, but it was in a local town. Had called her and invited her to teach a workshop. And I remember drinking my hot chocolate, and I don't know if there was more like steam coming from the hot chocolate or me at that moment. And I felt like, why doesn't anybody ever ask me? Like, why
mm,
don't they ask
mhm.
me? And I just felt so invisible, so frustrated. It felt like the story of my life. And I went home feeling miserable. And then I had a
Uh,
thought, and the thought went, well, why don't you offer to teach the workshop? And with that, like I got out a whole thing on the computer and I wrote a proposal for the workshop and I sent it off and they immediately responded, oh, we love this idea. And it ended up being the highest attendance workshop there.
wow.
And that set me on this whole path of, if I am feeling so invisible, then maybe there's something I can do about it. And one thing led to another, this course, and then I did more of those courses. And then I started going to Toastmasters, and just one thing led to another until I got to the point of like, I want to write these ideas down. And now, um, we all have these urges, right? These needs, these longings. And that was
Mhm.
one of my longings, was to feel
Mhm.
seen and to contribute in a
Mhm.
way rather than just selling clothing.
Oh, that's beautiful. And for the listeners and the viewers, what I know about you is that you have already a background in social work, psychology, and all that, which actually explains how insightful you are. Because someone to be able to recognize, oh, I'm feeling invisible and I can do something about it, that requires a lot of insight and introspection. So I can see how your background in psychology definitely helped you with that. And you also have, I'm extending right now one of her sarongs that I got. They're gorgeous. This one has like a mandala and it's just absolutely beautiful. I'm wearing right now. But you started this business from an experience, right? And a trip moment. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
So this business started 30 years ago. So we're talking going back
Wow.
quite a long time. And I always had I was in my early 30s. I really had this strong desire to go to Indonesia. I have no idea why. I just saw this group of islands and I thought, oh, that looks so interesting. So I went, I traveled like 7 months, loved it. And then returned to New York City, which is where I was living at that time. And I had been doing public relations before that and, like a quote, normal job. And right. When I got back, I needed to work. And I just, for the life of me, did not want to get a job. There was just nothing in the newspaper that I wanted to apply for. And I just had this again, this longing for freedom, and to be able to do what I wanted to do. And I just had a light bulb moment and it went, I wonder, if I go back to Bali and I buy some beautiful clothing that I had saw gorgeous, in particular at that time, kids clothing with moons and stars and colors and patterns and I wonder if it would sell. And I took out a calculator, like tick, 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 to figure out, okay, maybe I need this much money to buy stuff and I need a plane ticket. And I could not figure out how I could possibly like lose any money unless everything got stolen. And my yearning was so strong to not get a job that I just did it. I jumped on the plane and I did it.
You're one of the OG entrepreneurs for sure, the original ones, because that's how entrepreneurs think. Entrepreneurs are like, oh, I really don't want to have to work 9 to 5, but I am willing to work 24 hours a day on my own business, on my thing. And it's just so beautiful how you were guided to do this. And it wasn't, of course, we don't want to have a regular job, but I think this is natural for you. To spend 7 months in Bali or Indonesia, that's incredible. That's not something that you do usually. A lot of people are doing it now, of course, it's being more of a norm to be a nomad. But for you, it was like you were going completely against the norm. Like this was like, wow, what are you doing with your life? And in your book, you mention a few things like being guided from your higher self. And I'd like to maybe ask you a little bit about your beliefs in what is it that is guiding you, your path.
So, about maybe a year before I went on this Indonesian trip, I had just had several miscarriages and, was in a lot of pain and loss from miscarriages. And at the time, my dad was going to the spiritual retreat in New Mexico, a Sufi retreat. And I was not at that time in my life interested in spirituality at all. I thought he was kind of weird, to tell you the truth, my father.
So
But I was suffering so much from these miscarriages and the losses that my dad said to me, "Why don't you go there for a week?" They do a summer camp every summer, and it happened to be like the end of June when this happened. And he said, "Why don't you go there for a week? I'll pay for you to go." And I've been to New Mexico before, and I remembered the sky in New Mexico and how beautiful that sky is. And I thought, okay, I'll go there because I like New Mexico. Well, I went there. It was a Sufi retreat. Didn't know anything about Sufism or about anything, meditation, nothing, zero. I always had a strong intuition, and I related with the word intuition, but I never related to God, the word God or spirit or anything else. And when I went there, I had my mind blown off its head, basically. I had
Oh,
really strong experiences there, like within 2, 3 days.
oh, goosebumps.
And I've been going ever since for 30
No
years. Yeah,
way.
yeah. And it changed my life like big time.
Wow.
It ended my marriage. I moved from where I had been living. I mean, it completely changed my life. And yeah, so it's been
Wow.
my path ever since.
Wow, that's incredible. And for the listeners that are not familiar with the Sufism, would you give a brief description of what that is?
Yeah, Sufi is basically having a direct experience with God. So the
Mm,
Sufi, a lot of people know about Sufi through poetry. Rumi is probably the most famous
yeah.
Sufi that has ever existed. And there really is just like going directly with God. There's no, thing to pray to or anything else. Sufism really rose in like kind of the 14th century, the 15th century. So a lot of the language of Sufi, and it rose in the Middle East and in India.
Mm,
So a lot of the
yeah.
chanting and things like that can be Arabic or even Hindu, but it's not really Arabic or Hindu. It really means having a direct connection. And it's the meditation practice is through breath work, of course, chanting, whirling, and dancing.
Yes. I went to
Yeah.
this whirling event and I was just fascinated. It was in France with that. It's incredible. Yeah. And you mentioned chanting, and it's also something that you mentioned on your book when you were talking about the incident at the lake house in Long Island. You created a mantra for yourself. Do you remember that time when in the mantra refusing to give up? Do you mind sharing just a tad of that?
No, I remember it really well. This is a sad story where I was in a canoe accident with a good friend, and we were thrown into a pond at the end of November. So it was very cold water, and I remember I had just gone to this Sufi camp uh, just 3 months before. So this is now the end of November, and I went for the first time to the Sufi camp in early July. So I had learned when I was at the camp mantra chanting. They call it more
Mhm.
chants, and the chant was Allahu, Allahu,
Mm.
Allahu.
Oh,
And when I was in the water, uh, it's such a difficult experience to explain because when you're in freezing cold water like that, your mind starts going down, your body, everything starts going down. I remember feeling incredibly warm, which is not a good sign. That means like hypothermia is coming, and I remember feeling like the clouds were getting like closer and closer, meaning I was drifting off, which is not good.
oh, wow.
And with that, I remembered this chant, Allahu, and I just said to myself, there's no way I am dying in this water. And I started chanting Allahu, 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 Allahu,
Wow.
oh, Allahu over and over and over and over again. And I don't know how long it took, but I then, because I'm on my back, not knowing which direction I'm going in, I felt weeds, and I made it to shore, and
Wow.
sadly my friend didn't.
Wow. Wow. I'm getting goosebumps. Oh, wow. Wow. It's so interesting, right? How that experience with the chanting that your father was like, go, I'll pay for that, was also your saving grace in some ways. Your dad didn't know that that was going to happen, but oh, the connection.
Yeah, and I kind of from that moment on felt that we have choices because I kind of felt like I was given a choice in that water.
That's a good point. Ooh, I love that. We
Yeah,
have choices. We have choices. In the power of words, it's so important, the resonance of words, because Allahu might not mean anything to most people, but for you, it had such a specific resonance and something in the book that really like shook me. And I had to like sit for a moment was when you said, um, it's okay to want money. It's okay to love money.
yeah,
It's okay to say, I love money. And I remember people, friends of mine, and my clients and everything, that they love money, and there's no shame, no negative beliefs or anything like that. They just love it, and it's a different relationship about it. And you mentioned this in the book, and I wonder, right? Why is it so taboo
it's
to love
so
money so much?
it's so taboo, and men are supposed to make money, and there's if they say they want to make a lot of money, that's like normal, but it's just like not quote normal for a woman to say that. It's like, oh, she's a money person or money hungry or greedy or right. We're
Yeah.
because it's not considered feminine. Feminine is giving and helping others and being nice and relational. And it's not like I'm going to be a kick-ass money person. So I think this is doing a huge disservice to women and the way I changed my business from my story is that my business was at five figures forever, meaning doing way under 100,000 a year in revenue. The way I changed it from that, which I did for a long time, to it being multiple sevens, which it is now, is
Hmm.
is facing my relationship with money and and not just that, facing my relationship with myself and um, believing that first of all I could make money and second of all that it actually is my responsibility because
Yeah.
before I thought it was my husband's responsibility or my father's responsibility or my responsibility. And so because I wasn't raised to think it was, and truthfully, not only wasn't I raised, it wasn't necessarily a positive thing. Like
Yeah.
it's more positive that I would be married and have children in my family, not so positive to have a big business and make money because that's what the guys should be. So this
Exactly.
is my struggle, right? And when I really shifted that, which is what I did very consciously because I began to be super honest with what I wanted. And I realized I actually did want money. I
Yeah.
actually wanted that, not just be successful, this or this. I actually wanted the money. So
Yeah.
I started to realize, whoa, that really presses buttons with myself and other people. Like, you're not supposed to talk about this. So I find that fascinating. And I think that problem that it is so taboo is part of the reason why women don't have money.
Absolutely. It's so interesting that you're saying that because um, when I was reading your book, you really addressed this and talked about so many women who grew up in the era of, oh, you get married, you stay home, and that's your job. You take care of the kids and blah blah, and don't worry about finances. Your husband is going to take care of that. And I think that unfortunately, those beliefs have been passed down through the generations, where women are either looking for someone to take care of them or they actually don't know how to do it themselves. Um, I have friends, unfortunately, that they are house poor, or I think it's house rich, house poor, whatever, that they have been able to have a home and it's a beautiful multi-million dollar home, but they can't leave it because they don't have a job, they don't have income, they don't have a way to make income. They are trapped. They're too old to get a job. They're like, oh my gosh, so many limitations. And I can see by reading your book, I can see how you're saying those are your limitations. The mind is limiting you. This is not the reality. Um, because I also see in your writing that you say, yes, it's very masculine. Just think 7 figures and be a bad boss, bitch, whatever, and, badass making money, and you're going to be just very masculine. But honestly, your work and what you do is so feminine. It can't get any more feminine than this beautiful sarong that I'm wearing right now, and this beautiful message that you're writing in this book. This book, even though it's like, yep, 7 figures, is so much the feminine aspect, the essence of that. Do you see that, or am I accurate
Because
on that?
this book came to light, my business became successful. All of it was because of the connection I have with spirit. And I in my life, I live an authentic life, an authentic, successful life, because I have taken the time to manifest what I want. And the way I have learned to manifest what I want is to first of all realize that this works, okay, that this actually works,
Yes, yes.
to get really clear about what it is that I want, like what my intentions are, what it is that I'm yearning for. And I talk about that in the book a lot, is the difference between yearning and wanting, because it's different. What I yearn for. And because of all the years I've gone to Sufi camp for, and followed other teachers as well, Claire Zamet, I'll just mention, who teaches feminine power, wonderful, wonderful course, wonderful person, to that women need to succeed, and they need to work in a way that is aligned with supporting their emotional and spiritual needs. And when women don't have that, they're just masculine, and they're just kind of on a to-do list. And then maybe you're successful, maybe you make 7 figures, but you're not very happy. So I've
Yeah.
always known that the purpose is to feel good. Like I've just always known that this is actually what it is, that I need to feel good and feel joyous and feel happy and feel, when I go to Sufi camp and I'm dancing and breathing, and that feeling of emptiness, that
Mm.
feels right? So
Mhm.
beautiful. And so I always try to bring in that experience, and be in partnership with my feminine spirit in order to
Mm.
bring in the things that I really wanted, and
Mm.
had the intentions of creating, such as money, or such as time off, or such as being really good at pickleball, which is what I'm really into right now. So we
That's
need to
awesome.
partner with our higher selves and with our feminine selves. And one thing I like to reflect on is that our business works for us. We don't work for our business. And
Mm.
when I first heard that too, I was like, really? That's like, never heard that before. I really hadn't. And I was like, I think I'm going to try that. And then you bring that into into meditation, into what you want. You use this, like we're in, as you know, we're like in a dance with the cosmos, and we partner with our spirits to make things happen in our world.
It's so beautiful. I remember in the book you mentioned that you had your upstairs team, your team that helps you. Do you want to say a little bit about that? Do you want to talk a little bit?
Interesting. Yes, absolutely. you know, there's people on the other side who have passed that we can ask for help with. I think of it as my spiritual self, with going into a sanctuary, and who joins me there is my higher self, my spiritual self. There's there's other angels and other entities out there that I know are there. I mean, I know from my own life, and the difficulties I've had, the dangers I've been in, that I am protected, and it's not just me
Mhm.
doing it. I know this. And
Mhm.
so that's what I mean. If we go through life thinking this is it, like we have to figure everything out between this ear and this ear, and like that's it, and maybe our parents help or our friends can help. If we think that's
Mhm.
all there is, that is a tough life. That is hard,
Mhm.
right? It's tough.
Mhm.
We have to understand that we're actually in relationship with things that we can't see, but yet feel this with love. That's who the upstairs team is. So you could actually, when I was at the beginning stages of writing the book, I had the upstairs team. I had someone who specialized in publishing. I had someone who specialized in social media. I had somebody who specialized in ease and flow. Like you could you could just like hire anybody you want in your team and give them job descriptions and see how they can help you.
Yes. It's interesting because when I was reading that part, I was like, this reminds me of Jean Slater, Higher in the Heavens. She
Yeah.
wrote a book on that specific thing. And somebody told me, I think it was my realtor, she was like, you just need to hire the team before they are manifested into this earth. Just think you need a great landowner, and you need this and you need that this to manifest it. That's so beautiful. And you also mentioned setting intentions in the mirror and just making sure that you are putting the intentions in different places. Do you want to share a little bit about that technique?
Yeah. So, sitting here right now is a lot of my intentions. So
Mm,
what I do is, and this is so important, is we need, especially for people who are visual or learners, I'm a visual learner, we need to first of all get clear about what it is we really, really want. And we only know that if we get empty and get connected to ourselves. So once we kind of know what it is that we really want, let's just talk about it's your business, and you know what those things are. Like there's maybe 4 or 5 things that you really want. Hit a certain sales number, um, get some more help, I don't know, sleep more, whatever what it is. Then you write them down, and you need to write them down in a place where you're going to see it over and over again. So this is really like a ninja trick. So I use these a lot, and I write down on each one separately, like what my sales goal is or whatever these intentions are, and I put them, like here I'm looking to my right, but they're right here on my wall. And you could
nice.
put them on, on your mirror. You could put them in your car console. You could put them inside your wallet in case you don't want anybody else to see it. But the reason why this works is because you are literally brainwashing yourself to believe it. That it's advertising. It's just like when you go online, right? And you want to buy like a dress, like a red dress, and then every time you go back online, they keep throwing out that red dress to you over and over again. And then you finally go, I think I'm going to buy the red dress. Well, you want to brainwash yourself with your ads that you want to get. And that is the power of doing it with writing it down or putting these little post-its everywhere.
Yes, yes. I was listening to Peter Van Lab podcast, and he talks about using the post-it notes as well. And he suggests changing it from location if the goal is like a long-term goal. Because if it's a short-term goal, you're like you post it, and as soon as you're done, that post-it gets thrown away or whatever. But if it's a long-term goal, the brain sort of gets used to seeing it in one place, and it's like it ignores it. And so I love the technique of putting in different places where the brain is not necessarily paying attention, but it's sort of like a surprise. Um, and that is going through the subconscious mind. I saw this show of magicians where they gather a group of people and they said, okay, I want you to draw me a picture of a zoo or something like that, zoo entrance. And everybody drew the exact same thing. And they were like, how is that possible? It's because throughout the trip to the place where everybody was going to gather, they have actually placed signs that they saw, but they were not aware that they were seeing. It was sort of like in the subconscious view. And I love that you're saying that. Put those notes in places with goals that benefit you, because we're bombarded constantly with things we don't want. Why not bombard us with things that we want? So that's powerful, really, really powerful. And then you also mentioned, I think it was you who mentioned writing a list by hand when you're writing that. Do you want to say a little bit about that
Yeah,
too?
so even when I'm doing my business, for example, I don't put like my to-do list on the computer at all. I have a notebook here, and I write down on one side of the paper, I write P, personal, and on the other side of the paper, the notebook, I put B for business.
Nice.
And that's where I list all the things that I need to be doing. And then if I did some of it in that day, I'll cross it out, and then I'll rewrite everything into the next page in the next day. And that's because I think there's proof that when you write it down and you rewrite it over and over, and if you can imagine, if that was your goal and your attention, and you don't just leave it on that paper and then move on to new pages and then go back and, oh, I forgot to do that. When you take the time to take it, rewrite it again into the next day, you kind again, we want to, it really is brainwashing. We really want to really dig into our subconscious, into our conscious, those things that we want to create to happen. And the more you do that, either with positive thinking of things you want to create, more money or more happiness or more whatever it is, the more you see that over and over again, the more you believe it. Because that's the other thing I often hear is like, well, I don't think I could do seven figures, or even, I don't even think I could do 100,000. Like, I can't do that. But if you start writing down, if, for example, also, if you're doing 50,000 and you write down, I'm going to do 7 million this year, that's a bit of a stretch. But if you're doing 50,000 and you write down, I am doing in revenue 100,000 this year, that's possible. And at first, you might say, there's like no way I can do 100,000. Like, I don't have this, I don't have this, and this, and this. But when you start saying every day to yourself and looking every day on that 100,000, you start to actually believe it because you see it so often.
Yes, 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 yes. And there's something about how the brain actually gets activated when we're using hand, because it's crossing both hemispheres and it's activating the neurotransmitter and neuroplasticity in the brain. So that technique is so powerful, and you're right. There's tons of research that says writing and then even transferring and writing it again gets ingrained in the brain. It's sort of like the neurons are building and connecting stronger. Like when you're practicing a language, if you don't practice a language, if you like write it one time and forget it, it's not going to get ingrained. But if the more you practice, the more proficient. And the same with beliefs. I totally agree with you. um, there was something you said also. You have to get empty first. And I think that in that space of emptiness, that's when God comes in, or the creator. That's when your creativity really shines, because we tend to listen to everybody else. Like, oh, do you think I should do this? Or what is everybody else doing? Let's see. Oh my gosh, they're doing this better than me. And I love what you're saying. Just get empty first. Do you have any tools or recommendations on how people can get empty?
Yeah, it's so important in embracing empty time and emptiness. I mean, spend time on your spirituality. This
Mm,
is, I think, how people can do it, because it's not something that you just sort of like may do for a minute a day or something like that. I mean, it's all great to breathe and take 5 breaths, and this is, of course, a good thing to do. But I think we have to like dedicate time to spiritual practice too. And because it's actually a skill. It Unfortunately, we were born in an age, unless you had certain parents or so, where it's just not really normal to even talk about the word God or spirit. It's just not in our vocabulary. So
Yeah.
we and I didn't grow up that way. So I needed to learn a spiritual practice. So that is the best way to do, is to learn a spiritual practice either through a meditation practice, or I did Sufism, or whatever it is. It's all the same, right? I will say that
Mhm.
ultimately it's
Mhm.
exactly the same. There's just one God,
Mhm.
and everything is done through breath and connection to your heart. And maybe I'll just share that, because that is a really powerful meditation, one of the most powerful meditations I've ever been taught, which is to spend time to feel the experience and feeling of love. And for many of us, that's not even easy to do. So you think about something you do love, like your cat or your dog, or like a flower that you saw, or your grandmother's cup that you kept, or it could be anything that sparks a feeling of love. And once you feel what love feels like, um, which we can feel right now, you just hold on to that feeling of love and breathe in the feeling of love and just sit with love. And that is one of the most profound practices you could possibly do, that creates a feeling of emptiness. Okay, because you get filled with love, and you get empty of the not so great feelings.
Yeah. The noise. Yes. Oh, wow. That's beautiful. I felt that. I felt that in my heart. Whew, that was really, really beautiful. And I really love how you are integrating so many tools that entrepreneurs can use, entrepreneur women can use in their lives, men or women. But um, and I wonder though, what would be one thing that you would recommend female entrepreneurs to do right now to increase their net, their income, or yeah.
We have to be in relationship with our income statements. And so an income statement is
That's a
basically,
different.
okay, because all of this, all, business and money is numbers. This is what it is. It is a numbers game. And the health of our business is through the numbers. And I always say our numbers speak. This is what's speaking to us. If you have a business owner, your numbers are speaking. And how do they speak? They speak in an income statement, which basically means a statement that shows the income coming in and the list of the expenses, and then what's at the bottom of that is called your net profit. And that is what we want. We want a higher net profit. But if you don't know what products are giving you the money, like for example, I have a lot of different SKUs that I'm selling. And if I just look at the basically how the revenue of all those SKUs, I'll never know which one is performing. I'll never know, is it that shrug that's doing well? Is it that sarong you have around your shoulders right now? Is that the best seller? We need to know what's working. And one of my consultant, Lisa Satora, my business consultant, said to me, "Don't fall in love with your products." And I love that.
Yes.
They have to they have to perform. And if they don't perform, we have to get rid of them. So that's your income. So you need to know what is performing. Is that one course the one doing the best for you? Is that one product doing the best? Is that one ad performing the best? Because we all think we know, but we don't know.
Yes.
And then you have the expenses. And then when you look at those things each month, then you start to really understand your business. And that is how you increase your net profit, is by knowing
Mm.
what's there.
It's interesting because I hear you talk, right? And in my mind, I'm like, okay, wait, how do we connect spirituality to what you're saying? And it totally, totally connects. Number one, um, a lot of people don't track their income or what's doing well or whatever because they have the fear of money. they in the lesson that you're bringing in is like, no, you have to love money. Your relationship with money has to be different. It has to be of love. When you are in love, like you were saying, in that space of emptiness where there's only love, there's no space for fear. And you don't have to be afraid of looking and tracking your income statement. The things that you don't see are the things that you don't track are the things that are not going to do well. So the same with weight. Oh, do you want to lose weight? You got to track how much you're weighing and also what you're eating and how are you exercising and everything. So if you don't track it, you can't measure it in business as well. And I think that not being afraid to surrender into love because money is just energy, and allowing yourself to see your process, your income statement with love, however, with detachment too. You're practicing a little bit of the Buddhism, detaching from things, which is you're practicing non attachment. Like, I am here to serve. And if this is not serving, it's okay. It's okay. It's not personal. I'm full of love and I know everything is going to be okay. So if this is not working well, it's okay. I practice non attachment. Like, you have so many incredible lessons in all of this. It's like, it's just blowing my mind of,
Yeah, because it's
wow.
all the same thing, isn't it? It's like it's not separated. It's not like, you have a relationship and you have a business and you have money and you have your health. And it's all the same thing. So it's
Yeah.
all about being or trying to be as conscious as you possibly can because it is all related. So we have to pay attention and make time for, inner work, for empty time. But what I often say, even though I meditate and I hug trees and I go to, I pray and all those things alone will not do it. We have to, and
Mhm.
that's why in the book I talk about the importance of what I call interactions, which are the meditation and the empty time and all that stuff. Those are the inner actions, and we have to couple that with our outer actions, hiring
Yes.
good bookkeepers, learning how to read an income statement,
Yes.
writing
Yes.
email, all
Hmm.
stuff. They work together, and a lot of people, especially spiritual people, think they can just pray and wait. Well, you can't. Nothing will happen. So
Yes.
you
Yes.
need to know how to read an income statement.
And I love that about your book. Your book is so grounded. It has both the spirituality piece, but it has the practical aspects. Like, hey, you can't do this alone. You need a mentor, you need this. Like, you go through everything that makes it so practical, yet not disconnected at all. It's very, very much connected. And a question that I have leading to that is, what is one way, or I wonder if there's a way that you can have your business serve you versus being a slave to your business?
Yeah. It's once again, it's kind of goes back to the same thing with the income statement. We have to know how we're spending our time. So, for example, I once I heard that idea, which I heard from, I think it was Ali Brown originally. I went to one of her workshops, and I met these. I think my business at the time was doing maybe 400,000, and I met these women who were doing like really high figures, seven figures, and they told me like, oh, I only work like 20 hours a week or 10 hours a week, and I was like, really? Like, is this even possible? So what I did, because I was taught how to do this in the workshop, is I went back and I wrote down in an Excel sheet every task that I have to do in my business, like every single one. And I still do that. And, I have something like 250 lines of tasks to create my business back from Bali. And then next to the task, I wrote down who's doing it. This is back when I first learned about this idea, like who's doing it. Like I had at that time maybe one virtual assistant, I had a consultant, and I realized that out of all those tasks at that time, I don't know how many were on the page, maybe 80 because it was the beginning. I realized I was like in every single cell, Leslie, 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 Leslie. So I need to that virtual assistant that is doing 5 hours a week. Well, maybe now she could do 8, you know what I mean? And this consultant who is so good at this, maybe she could do my Amazon ads. And I started doing that. And that's how I did it. And that's how I started to structure a
Mm.
business that serves me more than I serve it.
Yeah, I love that. I know that a lot of people are afraid of hiring someone because they
Yeah.
won't do it as good as we do it, or they don't know, but we cannot do it alone. And I love all those tips that you're giving people on how to do that. And um, there was something about Amazon Live that you
Yeah.
mentioned in the book. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think I was giving an example of how long things take. Is that what you're?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes.
I was just talking about how, like, we have these to-do lists, like today we're going to do blah, 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 blah. And and they're long and everything. So what I started to realize, like that one thing is called doing an Amazon Live, which is like doing Instagram Live, basically
Yes.
going on video and presenting how to wear a sarong or one of my products. Like it wasn't just go on Amazon Live, like as if that's like something that's going to take text 10 seconds. I had to go do my hair. I had to put on makeup. I had to go slip out the lights. They fall over. I had to prop them up. I had to prop the computer on a stand. I
Oh,
had to, I didn't have enough outlets. I have to get an extension cord. It didn't take one little thing. It's taking like 3 hours. So
yes.
one of the, one of the ninja
And
tricks is to schedule things. And I just use I have a Mac here, and I just use the Mac schedule, like the calendar, right? The calendar.
nice.
And I just put in, like, do an Amazon Live, and I think about how long do I think this will take. It's always longer than I think, even though try to think it through. And I schedule it in like 12 to 3 Amazon Live.
Nice.
And then I look at my
Nice.
to-do list and I schedule it in 4 to 5.
Mm,
This is
mm.
a this is a game changer if people do this.
You definitely have a lot of ninja tricks in that book. I love, 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 love reading that. And that's why I was like, you need to read it. You need to read it. Everybody needs to read it. Um, you also mentioned a few things about talking about the law of attraction and Abraham Hicks and, just when you started writing the book. And were some of those things influencing you in your business at all?
I mean, again, it's all connected because when I wanted to really make the business more successful, I didn't know a lot of these things. And I
Hmm.
remember what I started to do was inundate myself with podcasts and books, which is the book is called Seven Keys to Seven Figures. Key number 3, become a ferocious learner. So
Yes.
I started to get out a lot of my old books, like on the law of attraction and Think and Get Rich, Napoleon Hill, one of the
Yes.
great, it's
Think and
dated,
Grow Rich.
right?
Yes.
The language is definitely dated, but it's
Yes.
probably the best law of attraction book you could possibly ever read. So I inundated myself with these books, with podcasts. And so, yes, that is
Hmm.
how I did it. I mean, it
Mm.
was through the change of my mindset of relearning, like how to manifest, that these books teach and podcasts teach,
Yes.
has had
Yes.
a huge effect on my business. And to this day, I use it all. That someone can say to me, well, don't expect to do so good this year. The economy is not very good. So I tend to think to a comment like that is, well, it's possible, but it's equally not possible. It
Mm.
hasn't even happened. So how do you know it's going to be bad? Like,
Love
and
that.
these are the law of attraction. These are these manifestation things that you learn in books like Think and Get Rich, that you learn to stop your language and listen to people who say things like that, because they could be right and they could be wrong,
I
right?
love that. Oh, I love that. I love that so much. So what is your future gonna look like? What are some projects you're working on? And,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more about you.
Thank thank you, thank you. So I still run my business Back From Bali, and you could find my products on Amazon and my own website as well. I'm really excited about the book, and it just came out as you said, and I'm thrilled that it's out already and out there in the world because the purpose of the book is to help women rise, and
Yeah.
I hope and want more and more and more women to read this book. I love speaking and inspiring, and I have a course called Keys to
Ooh.
Success, and it's on my website as well. And so I would like to do more like that, sharing my course with people, selling my course, uh, selling books, speaking. That makes me happy. And then, of course, I love a lot of downtime. I love a lot of downtime, and
And
my
you
husband,
deserve it.
right. And my husband and I love playing pickleball these days and
Nice.
really just kind of
Mm,
enjoying things.
mm. I love that. I see you and I see the process of your life, the struggles that you went through, the changes that you had to embrace. And you are in this stage of life where you really could just travel and do nothing and you'll be okay. But you are in this stage of sharing and being a container of wisdom for others and helping the community. And I'm really grateful for you for doing this work. This is not easy. To write a book is not easy. To do all the publishing and all that is not easy. The courses. Um, and I really want to thank you for contributing to the humanity, and your message is so powerful and so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for today's conversation. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
I
Thank
loved it too. Thank you so much.
you. My pleasure. Great having you. Thank you.